Hi, everybody. Can everyone hear me? Oh, good. I loved everybody was like waving and seeking, and it was really good. Okay, my name is Erica Wall, and I am the director of the Berkshire Cultural Resource Center here at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. I want to welcome everybody to an ongoing program that we've been doing that we have so enjoyed and really grown, and it is our conversations towards dismantling racism. This is sponsored by BCRC in partnership with the Artist Impact Coalition of the Northern Berkshires. And this is something that has obviously come out of what is going on politically and socially, and it is our means of doing the work. So we've had several conversations. One that the BCRC started a while back in June, where we looked at an image. We believe that the vehicle for having discussions around challenging subjects can be art. And so if we root our observations, which often are opinions, in art, it helps us to establish a means of expressing ourselves in a way in which we can be civil and supportive. So tonight, I'm really excited. We are going to use the work of Vincent Valdez, an image called The City. And I hope that all of you have or did receive the email that I sent to those that had registered in advance, that we will be using a method called visual thinking strategies. And that is really about not just the image, but it is about the viewer. It is about all of us coming together. And so I'll be asking you a series of questions. And the best way that we found to navigate this is that we ask you, if you would like to share an observation, that you either raise your hand or you use the digital raise hand. And Veronica, can you wave? We'll search you out, or I will search you out, and we will unmute you so that you can share your observation. You can also tell us in chat. That's a great way to do it as well. And so today's program will start with a visual thinking strategies conversation, and then we will break into groups, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss maybe some of the observations that we weren't as comfortable discussing with a larger group, or things that may have come out of the discussions we have around the work. So we're going to divide the evening into 45 minutes of looking at this artwork and 45 minutes of discussion. So again, welcome everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. All right, so bear with me, everyone. The hard part about this is that there are several of us on this call, and so I'm gonna have to scroll through and see who wants to answer. And so it may take me a while. Veronica and I have been working through this to make sure that we are able to identify the places that you're talking about in the work, but there is a lot in this work. So be patient and bear with us. And I'm going to start off by asking, what is going on in this picture? Great. Amanda, hold on one second. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Erica. It seems to be a group of KKK members who are gathered and looking at the viewer. Most of them are looking at the viewer.
Okay, so Amanda's saying that she sees that this is a group of KK members and they are all looking out at us. So my first question is, what do you see that makes you say that they are KKK members?
The white hoods.
Okay, so these white pointy hoods. And you said something about them all looking at us. What particularly about the image says that they're all looking at us?
You can see the eye holes sort of generally in the direction of where we are, and with a couple of exceptions, it just seems to be that the gaze is forward.
Got it. So the gaze, most of the holes within the hoods are looking out at us. Thanks, Amanda. What more can we find? And I should ask, I forgot to ask at the beginning, one of the really important parts of this is that you stay with us on screen. It's important that we all see each other, especially when we're sharing ideas. So if you're in the conversation, I ask that you keep yourself muted, but you do show yourself on screen. Thank you so much. Who else have we got? Christopher. Okay, Christopher and then Blair. Christopher, Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Yeah, it looks like a truck or a vehicle is approaching the scene.
Okay, so a vehicle you see approaching the scene. I'm going to move it over. And what do you see that makes you say it's approaching?
The headlights are on, so it implies that maybe the truck is turned on and is actually in an active motion. And it looks as though it's pulling up to the scene that we're seeing with the KKK members.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Chris sees that this is a truck, a vehicle approaching the scene. He says that because the headlights are on, it means that the car is still in motion or on, the engine is on. But you mentioned at the very end that it's approaching this KKK scene. So what do you see that makes you say KKK?
Well, the hoods and the I guess for lack of a better term, the kind of the cloaks that they wear implies that they are members of the KKK.
Okay, so you agree with Amanda that these hoods that they're wearing, that these pointy tops, along with this gathering and the way in which the scene appears, that you also agree that this is a group that would be identified as KKK. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Blair, let me find you, Blair. Let's see. There you are, Blair. Okay. Hi, Blair.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think I saw Drew mention this in the chat too, that I'm noticing signs of like more contemporary times than like older Klan rally settings. So like cell phone and cell tower and things that kind of indicate we're in today, not in times long ago.
Okay, so Blair agrees with Amanda and Chris that this is a KKK, you called it a rally. Christopher used the word scene, but there's also a contemporary, this is a contemporary image to you, or something that looks as though it's taking place now because of the electronics. You said the cell phone specifically.
Yeah, that feels like the most obvious giveaway, but a cell tower too.
The cell tower. Okay, so, and you use the word rally. What do you see that makes you say rally?
Yeah, I don't know if rally is the right word, but noticing that, people I see, I think maybe at least one person who seems to have a weapon over his shoulder. It's like sort of, there's a sort of militarization maybe, or, I feel like that guy in the center, is that a weapon that's hanging over his, yeah.
Right here, okay. Let me see if I can get in a little bit closer.
It's something sort of strapped over a shoulder, I think, that made me think.
What do you see that, what is it that makes you think that it's a weapon?
Well, I was wondering if it was like a barrel of a gun or something, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay. So you're saying with what you would associate happening possibly at a KKK rally, people gathered together. Amanda had said that too. Chris called it approaching a scene, but you're thinking just some of the things that you're saying, aside from this contemporary idea with all of the technology, that there could even be people carrying weapons, and to you this looks like the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, like possibly like an expression of militarism.
Militarism with the gun. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Blair. Let's see. What more can we find? Kate? Hi, Kate.
Hi. These are I guess, questions in a couple of ways. When you zoomed in on the truck, it looked to me as though that there wasn't anyone in the cab. So I'm not sure, I couldn't tell for sure, but I'm not sure whether there's someone sitting in the truck.
Okay,
There
I'm gonna
isn't-
try and, I think that's about as close
Yeah.
I can get. But to you, it's hard to tell, but it looks as though there's no one sitting in the truck.
So I wasn't sure whether to read that as that I can't see them, or as though the truck might possibly belong to someone in this group, that they've parked it there and gotten out.
Okay, so kind of going back to what Chris had referenced, that it looked to him like the car was approaching this group because the headlights are on. But you're wondering if, because you don't see anybody in the passenger seat, but maybe that the car is actually parked there, headlights on, maybe for the group, versus it actually approaching the group. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about the body language, that we're seeing people, you know, their faces are covered, they're wearing the KKK hoods, there are very clear, you know, allusions, obviously, but in the body language that he's showing us, the person who's holding that sort of smoking brand is looking straight at the truck. The rest of them appear to be looking towards us. And some of them I don't know what to call it, you know, the person who has a hand on someone's shoulder, the person who's holding there's one person holding someone else's hand, the person who's holding their hood in place. I don't know whether to read that as anxious, or most of them are not necessarily standing in a way that I would immediately read as aggression, which isn't to say that they don't look dangerous, but I'm trying to think about the choices in body language, because we can't see their faces, so their bodies are the best way to interpret, maybe.
Right. So you're really curious about the body language that is being depicted here, conveyed through the work of the artist. And there are so many references here, maybe to kind of, that are opposite of what Blair may have said, this idea of militarism, even though he saw what looked like could be a weapon. Some of the body language here with people, I don't know, so demonstrative, putting their arms around the shoulder, holding the hand, this woman clutching here, that maybe it is not, maybe there isn't the sort of kind of danger, if you would think of a weapon that could be here, but it is a gathering. People have talked about that, but it has been called a gathering, a scene, a rally, and you're trying to kind of reconcile that with the body language that is portrayed here.
And I think there's still a lot of suggestions of danger. In
Okay.
the hoods themselves, in the light, in the fact that we're standing in the glare of the headlights, in the fact that it's unclear whether there's anyone in the truck. You know, the person holding what looks like the smoking torch.
Are you talking about this here?
No, there's one person standing with his back to us on the far
right
left,
here.
and he looks as though he's holding a smoking torch.
Right here.
One person who's looking straight at the truck. And I think also the person who has a cross on the hood, the one person whose face is revealed, there are many, many elements that feel to me like they have a good deal of a suggestion of danger.
Okay, so
there's there may be a narrative.
Let me make sure I understand that I'm getting everything that you're saying. I want to make sure. So you're saying that even though some of the body language may suggest something different, there is still an element of danger. We see this smoke here. We see obviously just the idea of what we understand or know to be KKK. Give off these ideas of danger, the scene itself, but still, again, trying to reconcile, there's some contradictions here for you and understanding maybe what all of this is about. But specifically, it's about the body language versus some of the imagery or some of the details. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think, that is the first and immediate impression, absolutely, is of danger, right. And of the Ku Klux Klan reference. But as I look at the scene, I'm sort of trying to think about the narrative or the choices that the artist is making. And
right. Just trying to understand those choices.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to go to Drew. Let's see. Hi, Drew.
Hello. Yeah, I think looking from right to left, I think it's pretty obvious that the truck is just parked. The dog is not startling there anymore, kind of thing. They're using the truck for lighting. And then as you scan from that, it looks like there's a person holding a banner. I was brought up Catholic, and in processions, there will be banners with a little fringe at the bottom on a stick kind of thing. So that makes it seem like a formal gathering. It was really striking when you zoomed in on the man with the rifle. His face is showing. He's the one person we can see part of his face. I think that would be, if he's going to use that rifle, he has to be able to see through the finder kind of thing. So that would indicate that's why he's not wearing the hood right down in front of his face. The man with the cell phone, really interesting. Then farther over on the other side, we've got a child in the arms kind of thing. Oh, and by the way, sorry to back up a bit. I think basically the woman is whispering to the man in the portion a little bit farther back to the right. That's why she's got her hand up against her hood kind of thing. I think they're having a whispered conversation there. And then
Okay, let me
to the
see
far left, I think it's great. The person with the torch, the way that smoke flows behind the whole group, it points at the moon, the misty moon, and then goes all the way back to catch the headlights of the truck, pulling the whole composition together. So that band of smoke that runs from left to right behind it really unites the whole picture. And then we've got the abandoned tires over there. Between that and the mangy dog, it's very much a rural community.
Okay. Drew just threw a lot out at me, so we can work our way through this. So first of all, you definitely agree with Kate that you think that the truck is just parked there and the headlights are being used, because if the truck were moving forward, as Chris had said, then the dog would actually be startled, but he's not startled at all. There's a reference to you based on this fringe here that this could be a banner that would also suggest some sort of formal gathering. Blair had talked about a rally. We've talked about Ku Klux Klan members coming together for a specific purpose. And then you referenced also some of the body language that Kate had talked about, specifically this woman here, that you feel like what's going on, rather than her holding her hood, is possibly that she's actually speaking or whispering.
No, it's over to the right, the three
Here.
heads together, there.
This, okay. So you're saying that here, based on this body language, that she's actually whispering to this group here.
Right, they're leaning in together. And you notice the wedding ring on, I assume it's the gentleman's hand who's touching her wrist kind of a thing. So we're getting a lot of, kind of intimate details about these people.
Right. So that's, again, working in sync with what Kate was saying, that there is a lot of information, a lot of detail that tells us about this group, not just based on our first impression, but a lot of the body language and the details. You talked about a wedding ring. You called this hand a man's hand. What do you see that makes you say that this is a man's hand?
I would say the watch looks more like a man's watch.
Okay.
The dark
And
spot,
then
that kind of thing.
you had talked about all these details, the baby, but you had specifically talked about the torch here and how you felt the artist so skillfully created this smoke or light that leads us all the way back to the other end of the work in the headlights of the truck. That there are, as Kate had said too, there are a lot of different details, almost different, what you're suggesting, different things going on simultaneously within this formal gathering. Does that make sense?
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Drew. Okay, we have two other hands raised. Let me see. Brianna. Hi, Brianna.
Erica. So Drew drew our attention to this pair of figures in the front who appear to be male and female, who are touching, and maybe she's whispering to him.
Okay.
And I'm interested in the figure directly behind them. You can see sort of through their faces.
This one right here.
Yeah, presumably he's holding a this possibly banner.
Okay.
He has a hand resting on the shoulder of the presumably male figure in the front. It's almost like he's sort of nestling them in, and maybe doing some kind of a religious ceremony.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe related to marriage.
Okay. So definitely building on top of what Drew had pointed out for us, looking back at this banner, but then going back to what Kate had said about the body language and what the narrative is here. Brianna is talking about maybe what is happening at this formal gathering as in terms of ritual. Drew had talked about this, reminding him of what he would see during Mass at the Catholic Church, but the way Drew had also talked about these wedding rings, and again, the body language, Brianna is suggesting that maybe there's even some sort of ritual or ceremony going on here with how this person is bringing these people together, holding this symbolic banner of some sort, and maybe that he is bringing them together. And that's part of, maybe a part of this, but some sort of ritual or ceremony. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Perfect. What more can we find? Thank you. Sarah, hold on. Let me unmute you. Okay. Hi, Sarah. You're still, wait, you're still muted. Hold on. I don't, why, oh, there you are. Okay.
Hi. One of the most disturbing things to me is how the figures are talking to each other, but they're leaving the viewer out. We have no idea what they're saying. So there's this sense of many conversations going on in a significant gathering, but we're not part of it. And the other thing is just the feeling you get that these are ordinary people because there are so many details of a cell phone and someone's hair and a baby. And so it's, again, extremely disturbing. They're not just figures seen on a postcard, you know, so far back that you can't see them as people. They're people, they're ordinary people.
So kind of building on what many people have talked about, we know this idea, the cloaked, the hoods that actually keep the identities unknown, but there is a certain, within the details that Kate and Drew and Brianna have pointed out, that to you, a lot of these details and some of the things that Blair had pointed out, that these are ordinary people that do everyday things. They have cell phones, they have babies, the baby is holding its toy. These are ordinary people underneath these masks who are having some sort, who are having their own conversation, their ceremony, their rally. There are possibly different ceremonies being performed within it, but we are excluded to you. We are not part of the conversation, and you specifically said that we are left out. What do you see that makes you say we are left out?
I guess, you know, the interaction between people. And first of all, when someone's having a conversation, you watch their face to see the expression. We have no access to their faces as well as, you know, auditory clues.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so what we would normally see with these normal people, they're cloaked by the hoods, by their gowns. It's almost as though it's, it serves the purpose of us not knowing who they are. They're ordinary people doing ordinary things, but what they're doing here specifically is closed to us. There's something obviously secretive to it. And that all of these details lend to this idea that underneath this, there are other things going on, but these are people that are doing something different than they normally would on a daily basis, but we can tell that they are normal people, just cloaked in hoods and gowns. Does that make sense? Did I get that?
Right.
Great, thanks, Sarah. I wanna also go back to, I think I had skipped what Drew had mentioned too, about the idea, we've talked so much about people whose hoods were on, but this particular character in the middle, his hood is actually not on, and he had said something with regard to the reference that Blair made, that if this was a gun, if you were actually going to use it, you could not do that through the hood. You would actually need to be able to be seen. Let's see, we've got a couple more hands up. Let me see if I can find Hannah. Hi, Hannah. There you go.
I'm really interested in the lights that are kind of behind. It looks like they're on or just the background kind of, it looks like they're on a hill maybe, looking down at a city or a valley of some sort?
Okay.
Like, are there
Kind of
city
this
lights?
area here, these lights here.
Yeah, and then down, yeah, between the, and then also it kind of almost looks like fire now. I don't know if that's just because there's a lot of fire these days, but like, are they on a hill? And also, I guess the cell tower also.
The cell tower.
Like,
This here.
we said that they're in the country, but also those look like a lot of city lights if they are.
Okay. Yeah, so Drew had mentioned, I think, this idea because of these details he saw, this taking place in a rural setting where Hannah is seeing some glimpses, specifically the light coming from the cell tower, but also through here, that there is possibly a city not far from that. But that I think you're also talking about, Drew had mentioned how significant the use of light is in this image itself. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Hannah. All right, let me see if I can go Sam. Hi, Sam. Oops, you were unmuted. There you are.
There we go. Hi. How's it going?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd also like to look at body language as well. Something that's kind of stuck out for me is bookend. On either side, you have the two individuals that have their backs to us. And it's almost like they're standing vigil, watching for the group to make sure no one's coming. There's an air of sneakiness to it. And since there's like, we have all these different individuals that are crowded around, there's definitely like a sense of like close community that we are definitely not allowed in. And the fact that the scene that we're seeing too, the rural country area, it looks like it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's definitely like, it's very, it's definitely something that is meant to be secretive. So what's interesting is having all of these different people in different times in their life. There's an individual next to the guy with the torch. It looks like they're holding notebooks, which makes me think that they're like some sort of student. So then we have,
Okay.
So we have all these different individuals in different periods of their lives that are all kind of being together in this ideology, the symbolic sheets. So I just thought that was really interesting. It's really quite a fantastic piece of work.
It is. Let me see if I can get everything that you mentioned. What I heard most is this idea, you called it bookend, that these two figures on each side, those are particularly looking away from us, but to you, the idea of them looking away and everything that people have discussed, this idea of us not being involved, is that it reinforces this idea of a closed community. They're almost the lookout, and that describe it, and people have talked about this before, people coming together, that it is a community. Sarah talked about some of the details that you've also mentioned that makes these a group of people that obviously know each other when they're not together like this, and using things that normal folks would use. You particularly pointed out this person who has a notebook and pen and said that possibly they could have, student of some sort because of having that, but also you talked about the different generations, the different ages within this group, which again, I think you're talking about this idea of community. Then you also mentioned, I think this idea too, that it really looks as though it is somewhere remote or far off. So talked about seeing these city lights. To you, it still looks as though it's remote and rural. What do you see that makes it look remote and rural to you?
The environment of it mostly, it seems like it's mostly dirt, mud. The car is dirty, rolling in on moist ground.
Okay.
It's a decrepit looking fence right there too that's falling apart. The cell tower is something that is indicative of being in the hills or a rural area. There's some what I perceive to be garbage with the tires. So it does kind of seem like it's an area that people don't spend a lot of time, or potentially could be low income area. So that's how I'm perceiving it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. Let's see. Erica.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that it's interesting to notice the smoke and the different sources of light, whether it's the city, the moon, the car, and also how the people are looking directly at the viewer. These things really make me think about the phrase smoke and mirrors, and then how like this image is shedding light on not only how these people disguise themselves, but how we disguise the history of this or the truth of this history, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So Erica is talking, she referenced, I think Hannah had talked about this too, and Drew, just the artist's use of light here. Talking about this depiction of, you know, we saw the cityscape peeking through here, but it made you think of the phrase smoke and mirrors, and we talked a lot about cloaking and secrecy, but you took it to this idea of disguise and thinking in a larger, broader idea of how this is a disguise possibly for these folks, but also conceptually disguising a truth about this group or what we perceive as KKK. That right?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Erica. Let's see. Who else have we got here? Sorry, I'm looking. Again, if you could keep your screens on, we'd really appreciate it. Amanda. Let's see. Did we get her?
Okay, there we go. Hi. I think it's something that I've just been thinking about also is that it's painted in grayscale rather than in color, and the associations there of black and white photography that might sort of like want you to place this in a different era, and that sort of feels maybe more comfortable that like the KKK is something from a different part of history, and obviously that's not true, and the sort of clues to contemporary existence that he's putting in there. And yeah, so I just wanted to notice the colors.
Yeah, so Amanda's pointing out just the choice, and you know, she said the grayscale, but also talking about the black and the white, and that reference to what we're understanding as the KKK, but this idea of the era, and I think that Blair started off with that, how the artist has used certain details to show us that this very well is or could be a contemporary scene, but what we might reference in terms of the KKK may be considered a different era, but maybe what the artist is saying is that this is very much still continues to be an era in which we see KKK rallies or gatherings, and that is still very active. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and even just like the placement of the baby too, to talk about how this continues, right? And how things get passed on.
Right, so that was something too that Sam had talked about, these different generations, and you're talking about how it can very well be now because it is perpetuated through the families and the members. Thank you. Okay, who have we got? Who else? Trying to find folks that we have not gotten through. Okay, Sweens.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Sweens.
Hi. I have been thinking a lot about, someone mentioned earlier the idea of exclusion and secrecy, and I definitely agree with a lot of the secrecy. Like, I don't feel like I am in on whatever this group of people are in on. However, I don't necessarily also feel excluded. I almost feel like the viewer is a target. Everyone except for those flanking people are looking directly at the viewer, and it makes me feel a part of whatever is happening, but not in a way that I am aware of, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like this whole scene is about me, but I don't know why. And especially the piece that especially, besides like all of the eyes looking, except for the two on the right, but the baby is specifically pointing at something. And it's the only person in this whole image that is actually pointing their finger. And I think it's very haunting, but also very engaging, brings the viewer deeply into this scene, I feel.
So there are a couple of different things here that Sweeney's pointed out. The first is Sarah had talked about this being a closed community, we're not part of it, and this idea that we are excluded. But even though you could, it sounds like you could appreciate that exclusion to you is more of looking at the viewer. It's not about them, it's about you in terms of a target, because they're looking at you, and that's emphasized by the baby even pointing at you, being the only one within the image pointing at you. And then this idea, again, going back to, as a viewer, it is not about the image that you would assume you're looking at the work, but potentially it is about you. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, not necessarily in the sense that like the viewer is a part of it, but it just draws you into it because it feels intimate. Like not often do you find work where so many people are looking directly at the viewer. And I just think that's an interesting way to pull you in and to make you feel like the target of what this secret or this thing that this group of people or community is hiding.
So it's really the about you is the strength of the draw. That creates this intimacy that makes it about not just the work, but it sounds like you're talking about the interaction. There's a real interaction between the viewer and this work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sweens. Brianna, let's see if we can unmute. There we go.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking also about the relationship between this group and the viewer, but maybe in a slightly different way from Sweeney's. And going back to Kate's points earlier about body language and the sense that there's sort of some anxiety or wariness sort of indicated in the body language of some of the figures. To me, the sense I'm getting from this image is like a kind of mutual menace. Like as a viewer, I feel a lot of menace from this group, but I also wonder if this group feels menaced by whatever is sort of represented on this side of the curtain, like where the viewer is positioned. And that puts in mind for me like the fact that in like many white supremacists in America feel themselves to be part of a threatened minority. So there's this sense that like the urban landscape behind them is maybe encroaching, and they're sort of left in this like uncertain huddle.
So a couple of things here. You definitely see the strength of the draw between the viewer and the work. But what you see in the body language, which has been referenced several times, Kate talked about it, Drew talked about it, Sarah talked about it, this idea though that you see this rather than this exclusion, this potential danger, that maybe the figures in there may be conveying with their bodies more a sense of anxiety or weariness. And this concept that we're seeing of the KKK possibly being the menace, perhaps that's what they're thinking of those outside their group. What do you see specifically when you reference body language that makes you say that there are folks in there that seem as though they're weary or anxious or consider what's outside of them to be the menace?
I mean, partly it's the way the scene is set and just the way this group is positioned in a landscape that doesn't feel like they're a part of it necessarily, like particularly this bright urban background. There's also this dyad of figures in the foreground it looks like if there's a female figure holding onto the front of her hood, maybe so she can see better. And to me, that reads as kind of a worried, or at least very focused.
Okay.
Sure.
So the woman in front, somebody had said at one point that it was more of someone holding it kind of in, not necessarily in fear, but to make sure that it didn't come off, that it was maintaining that. But you're saying that possibly that is a bit of anxiety that could be conveyed as well, that though what we've talked about, what's been referenced is this idea, is this group to be feared, what's going on, being excluded, that perhaps this is the feeling that they have. And you alluded to the landscape encroaching on them. And I'm wondering specifically what you see that makes you say that the landscape is encroaching on them. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I guess just the idea that I mean the land that they're standing on definitely has all these rural kind of qualities and symbols, but then it's clear that sort of maybe they're right on the border of urbanity,
Okay.
which is sort of not culturally what I associate with the KKK.
Okay, so it takes away from an idea, concept, thought of what you would consider based on the landscape around them and just the way that the work situates this group. That makes sense? Perfect, thank you. Molly.
I am interested, as we're talking about this body language and the nervousness, or, what some have seen as nervousness, I'm also interested in kind of the pieces that indicate casualness, and like a sense of, I guess, a sense of safety that is being felt by those who are present. For example, on kind of the left half of the painting, there's someone holding what seems to be a beer can, and then also the presence of the child. Those to me indicate kind of a situation that is less formal, a situation that is less intense to the participants who are there. And even potentially the phone being out by the one person more to the right, all of these being things that, this is a casual gathering, we're not in a moment of, a formal procession, a formal ceremony, that it's, that what we are coming upon might be a much less formal gathering, albeit in kind of this formal costuming of the Klan.
Okay, so I think what we've heard a lot of as we come to closing our part of the program, that there are a lot of contradictions in here. You've talked about, we started off with this idea of possibly it being a formal gathering, but there are a lot of different details, including the body language that was first referenced with Kate, but details that tell us that this is a familiar group and that there is a casualness to it. And Molly pointed out the beer can here, having the baby there, that also there's a certain level of comfort and safety that this group feels with this. And that, again, is in contrast to some of the things that we've heard Blair had talked about, this idea of there is a certain sense of danger if we were to consider this a gun. Kate talked about that too. But at the end of it, the idea of this being a formal gathering, whether it's a rally or something, there's something that is opposite to that. And has a lot to do with the details that we've pointed out. We are at our time and it goes by really quickly. We're going to head into our second portion. I want to thank everybody for what I knew would be a lot of amazing observations, because there is a lot in this work. And I really am pleased that we had an opportunity to talk about this work. And it would be great if the artist were here to hear that, and potentially he is. So we hope that he too benefited from hearing this, because I know artists love to hear what people are seeing. But I think what's most important is to understand the gravity this has, and that this is such an amazing opportunity for us to discuss what is often difficult to discuss. And so we thank Vincent Valdez for making this work, because that creates an opportunity. By the way, he's here, everyone. Hopefully he'll break out into groups with us, but I'm gonna turn it over to Brianna, and we're gonna head into our small group. So thank you so much, everybody.
Erica, can you just remind me what I should set the timer for with the groups?
We are going to do, we're at 5:45, so we'll do another 45 minutes, but maybe we should do another 40 to give us 10 to come back and share. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
so everybody is assigned to a room. I'm gonna press the magic button, and then you'll all have to confirm on your end that you would like to go to your breakout room. And I'll be here to troubleshoot if anybody has issues.
Hello, everyone. I'm your, oh, I guess Veronica's also a host. Did we get paired last minute together?
Yeah, I think they said that the setup was going to switch, so I wasn't sure who I was getting paired up with, but I'm glad it's you, Jessica.
Yeah, nice to see you. And nice to see everybody. Do we want to start with a little round of introductions? Probably, get to know each other a little bit better. So I'll start. I'm Jessica Sweeney. I'm part of the Artist Impact Coalition. Many folks call me Sweens. You're more than welcome. It's kind of a nickname that has stuck with me through my life. And yeah, I'm gonna go in order of my screen if you all are comfortable with that. So Vincent, you are next.
Hey everybody, my name is Vincent Valdez. Glad to be here. I'm not sure, am I able to participate, or should I remain on the outskirts and just listen?
You can, I'm fine with you participating, yeah.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
All right, great. It's good to see everybody.
Thank you, Vincent. Veronica.
Hi everybody, I'm Veronica Preciado. I'm the manager here at Gallery 51.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Sarah Sutro. I'm part of the Artist Impact Coalition, and I'm a painter who lives in North Adams.
Thank you, Sarah. And Chalice.
Hi, I am also a painter that lives in North Adams.
Welcome, everybody. So we do have a couple of prompts. Also, Veronica, feel free to like jump in if you have anything specifically planned. But do we want to go with prompts, or do we just kind of want to open up with conversation? This part is very flexible and open to everyone.
I'm good with the prompts, and I would actually like if we could start off kind of with the observations still. There's something that kind of clicked in my mind before we had switched over, that it was only when Amanda had said something that it actually brought it to me, but still that idea of what's the relation of the viewer to those that are being depicted. And immediately when I place myself as to, if I was standing right there in front of this group, I'm thinking of it in relation to who I am and what I look like. And I realize that's very different depending on what you look like as someone else too. So my thought was, am I looking at the moment before the gentleman with the gun in the back decides to act? Because they're not, it's like this moment where it's right before there's this tension, like everyone was saying. You're still the outsider, you're not entirely welcomed, but there isn't this moment of action yet for aggression. But I wonder too, if you were white presenting and you are showing up, then is this the moment that people are admitting the new member? Or how does the relation to this group change depending on what the actual viewer is to the painting? And it took me a while to catch that until right at the end, that I thought what moment we're seeing really depends on who is seeing that moment.
Yeah, that's a really profound observation that I didn't pick up on initially, and it's true. Like, that's what when I was sharing my observation, I was like trying to figure out who I was supposed to be in relation to what was happening. And now that you're pointing out that like it is just going to be different depending on who you, that's, and that ability or not ability, but just the way in which that is so carefully presented. Like, there's just enough aggression and just enough casualness for anyone sort of to have a different experience with that painting. Yeah. Wow, that just kind of like blew my mind a little bit. Any other observations that folks want to share?
I want to go back to what it feels like to be seeing these human beings whose faces you can't experience. Like, if you've ever tried to talk with someone who has mirror sunglasses on, it's like a terrifying experience because you can't see their eyes. You know, you have no idea what's going on. And those hoods, while they are depicted as real people, they're like completely masked, essentially. And there's something, it's a really deep impression it's as if we're standing right there, but these people are beyond reaching or something like that. Or, you know, we can't know them somehow, or their motives. It's very powerful to be so close. I think the way the viewer is in a way right, and we're in the same space because they're so up close to the picture plane. It's just strange and disturbing and very true somehow. Like, that's what it would be like, I think, if you were there.
Yeah, what strikes me about what you just said too is that when you can't see their eyes, you have no idea what is behind there, but you assume human because of the shape of the figure, that how the fabric lays, but the only thing that you get for identifiers are their hands. And that is still not really enough to know who they are, like you said.
I also think there's something about seeing a baby in the costume of Ku Klux Klan that it's like some sort of sacrilege, you know. And it's like, of course, people who were in the Ku Klux Klan probably do pass it on to their children, but this is visual, and so you see this young human being being decked out like the parents, and it's just it's searing, you know, to see that.
I think something that's really eerie is the fact that they're like, you can't see their faces, but most of them are facing the viewer. And it's, I don't think disorienting is the right word. Yeah, it's not calming.
I don't know, Sarah, if this would be kind of stretching it too far, but what I noticed too with the child is that the figure that's right next to the child, you'll notice is like outstretched, saluting towards the viewer. And you have the baby who's pointing. And to me, all I could see was kind of this mirror image of action. And the baby starting off with the action that might be more innocent looking of a pointing to a figure that someone is new, but you have this gentleman in the back who is saluting. And so in my head, I was wondering, someone else was saying how it's passed down. And I kind of thought, like you said, with the costume, they have their baby costume, I guess their teenage costume, and then their adult costume. But then also, are they translating from this simple act of pointing to then saluting, and that carries a lot of meaning as well too.
Can I give you guys a little bit of insight?
Yes, please.
So if you, you know, this piece in particular is such an amazingly complicated compositional and conceptual codex. You know, by far one of the most severe in terms of its